Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to lesson 7.3. This is going to be the last lesson we have where we talk about exponent properties. And in this lesson, we're talking about two properties that we kind of use in conjunction with the other properties. And that is the zero property and the negative property. And basically what we're going to be doing in this lesson is we're going to be able to express a negative exponent as a reciprocal, and we're going to be able to express a zero exponent as 1. That is, we will understand and be able to recognize that when we have a negative exponent or a zero exponent, that some transformation of the number kind of ends up happening. So let's get right into the definitions of these two things. So let's start with the zero property first. And I want to show you guys something here. So if we were to take a number and say 2 to the first power, 2 to the first power is 2, right? If we were to multiply another 2, we would get 2 squared, which is 4, and 2 to the third, which is 8, and 2 to the fourth, which is 16. Every time I'm moving to the right, I'm multiplying by 2. So every time I'm increasing the power, I am multiplying by 2. Now, we can go in the opposite direction as well. And when I go the opposite direction, notice that as I go left, I'm in fact dividing by 2 to get that number. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now we can continue that pattern, and that will tell us what the zero property is. So if I take 2 divided by 2, I get 1, because 2 goes into 2 one time. And as it turns out, no matter what number you're using, that property always holds true. If this were 4, this would be 4 divided by 4, and I would get 1 when I did 4 to the 0. And if it were 100, I would have 100 divided by 100, which would be 1. So the zero property, the rule when it comes to zeros, is that any number to the 0th power is always equal to 1. Because of this, right? If I have something to the first power, it's always equal to itself. And every time I decrease the power, I'm dividing by that number. And that will always end up being 1 when I do that. Always, no matter what the number is. So a to the 0 equals 1. And that means, like, even if like I have like a ton of things in here, if it's to the 0th power, it's 1. That's the, and even if I have like something ridiculous like 1/2 pi squared to the 0th power, that is 1. Because anything to the 0th power is always equal to 1. So there's my zero property, right? Anything to the 0th power is always equal to 1. That one's pretty straightforward. The negative property is always one that I find that students have a little bit of difficulty with. So let's continue this pattern to the left. Notice how that I'm reducing the powers by 1. Let's reduce the power by 1 more. So I get 2 to the negative 1 power. What happens to this value down here? We're going to continue the pattern. We're going to divide by 2. And when I divide by 2, I'm taking 1 divided by 2. And what do I get? 1/2. Notice that what happened was the 2 became a reciprocal. Let's continue it one more time. 2 to the negative 2, I'm going to divide 1/2 by 2. 1/2 divided by 2 is 1/4. Notice that the 4 here and the 4 here, the same, right? 4 is just 2 squared. Let's go down 2 more times. 2 to the negative third and 2 to the negative fourth. I'm going to divide 1/4 by 2. And I'm going to get 1/8. Notice the 8 that is in common. And then finally, I'll do this last one here. What do you think it's going to be? Here's a hint. I'm circling it, right? It's 1/16. These ones, as they go to the left, are just basically a reciprocal, right? So a negative exponent is a reciprocal. Notice that it did not, and I stress this, make the number negative. It made a reciprocal. Any number to a negative exponent is going to create a reciprocal. A negative exponent is going to flip it because of what happened right here. When we continue this divide by 2 pattern, we create fractions. We do not create negative numbers. A negative exponent flips it. It makes it a reciprocal. Let's do some examples of that. 3 to the negative 2. The negative exponent makes a reciprocal. So this is 1/3 squared, or 1/9. So that would be my final answer. The negative exponent made a reciprocal. This is a positive number. The negative exponent does not make something negative. It makes a reciprocal. B, -7 to the 0th power. Anything to the 0th power is always equal to 1. And that's my final answer. Notice that this is the only case where it changes the base of the number. 0th power became 1. 1/5 to the -2. Negative exponents create reciprocals. So 1/5 to the -2 is 5 squared, because I flipped the 1/5, and when you do that, you take the negative away, or this is 25. Finally, the last one here, this is a bit of a trick. This is 0 to the -5. So remember that this is 0 over 1, right? Because we can write it as a fraction. If I were to flip this and take the reciprocal, I would have 1 over 0 to the 5th, or 1 over 0. And what's the solution when we have 1 over 0? No solution, because you can't divide by 0. All right, so we've got a couple of examples there of how we change a negative exponent and a 0 exponent. There's a couple of practice problems that I'd like you to do. Go ahead and do those now, and then we'll do some more complex operations with negatives and zeros in the next video.